When I think of the 90s, I think of great times, happy times, easy times. I was a little kid, no responsibilities, no worries. I look at the 90s and I think, man, that was such an amazing decade. But, I'm sure there were awful parts of the 90s as well. Things happening, you know, I think, was there a dot-com bust or boom in the 90s? Yeah, there's bound to have been terrible things that happen as well, but I genuinely have no idea. Like, so when I think of the 90s, I'm just thinking of the nostalgia, the amazing, like, pre-internet days.
Now, we have several live reports to bring you. First, John Rollins is in East Moriches, which is the on-ground headquarters for the search mission. That's only 10 miles from the crash. John, what's the latest there?
Welcome to Watch Mojo, and today we're looking at moments from 1990 to 1999 that made the world stand still.
Jewell made a brief appearance outside his apartment last evening. On Wednesday, dozens of FBI and ATF agents were in Jewell's residence and carried off box after box of materials.
What happened
Los
there?
Angeles riots.
Now the story that might never have surfaced if someone hadn't picked up his home video camera. We've all seen the pictures of Los Angeles police officers beating a man they had just pulled over. The city's police chief said today he will support criminal charges against some of the men. Here's ABC's Gary Shepard.
In the wee hours of the morning on March 3rd, 1991, motorist Rodney King was pulled over by police officers in the San Fernando Valley of Los Angeles for speeding. The responding officers, under the false impression that King was armed, beat him ferociously. Unbeknownst to them at the time, bystander George Holliday filmed the beating on his personal camcorder, and the resulting footage was widely publicized.
I feel that it's a great travesty of justice. I feel that the jury in Simi Valley gave the okay to continue to abuse and oppress and suppress black people in this country. I feel that there is an undercurrent of racism and that the system is rotten to the core.
Despite the overwhelming evidence against them, the four officers were acquitted of assault.
Wow, they walked free. That's unreal. That's unbelievable.
And 3 of excessive force. This, combined with growing unrest amongst black Americans, resulted in the calamitous LA riots, saw 63 deaths, over 2,000 injured, and a reported $1 billion in damages.
It's not right! It's not right what y'all doing! I came from the ghetto, too!
And a man who had overcome all the afflictions of a blighted inner city, who had built a store that was the work of his life, saw it all come down.
Oh,
And asked why.
no.
Hurricane
They destroyed his store because of the riots. Dude, that's mad how those cops walked away from that without any... Were they sued at least or anything?
Andrew.
And here are the effects of Andrew as he begins to arrive here on Miami Beach. You can see the palms blowing, and then over here, you can see the sand. It's almost like a blizzard, a snowstorm of sand. And here you can see the wind is really picking up. In fact, the car is rocking back and forth, and I'm sure that's evident in the picture.
It's almost easier to describe Hurricane Andrew in terms of the statistics it wrought. Causing havoc in the Bahamas and the American state of Louisiana, Hurricane Andrew was felt most strongly in Florida, taking place over the course of 2 terrifying weeks in August 1992. The tropical cyclone stood as the costliest, most devastating hurricane to hit Florida until Hurricane Irma in 2017.
The leading edge of the storm that devastated South Florida. Still at it this morning, now in the heart of Louisiana's Cajun country.
Wow, those
2,000 people huddled in one of many
vicious.
shelters in Lafayette. When the wind picked up, they were awakened at 3 a.m.
In fact, it was the costliest in any part of the contiguous United States until the infamous Katrina of 2005. Costing oil companies a reported $500 million due to damage sustained to oil platforms in the Gulf of Mexico. Andrew was directly responsible for 65 deaths and nearly $30 billion in destruction.
And Dave, for anyone living here on August 24th of 92, it's a...
Mate, look at all of these homes just trashed. Messed up.
Impossible to forget these images. I mean, take a look at the devastation that Hurricane Andrew left behind. The Category 5 storm was the most destructive hurricane to ever hit Florida in terms of structures damaged or destroyed.
Holy smokes, look at this aerial shot. This is like a whole town.
World Trade Center bombing. Nearly a decade before the now unforgettable events of September 11, 2001 in New York City, extremist militant organization Al-Qaeda launched a terrorist attack on the World Trade Center. On Friday, February 26, 1993, Ramzi Youssef and Iyad Ismail set off a bomb in its parking garage, killing 6 people, including a pregnant Port Authority employee. Hundreds more found themselves trapped in the dark, smoky towers.
These are the first pictures from inside the garage, and we're also told now that there are 4 people confirmed
We've
dead.
called this the terror at the tower, and it's made even more so by the fact that it was an explosive device. And from now on, people in New York are going to feel even more vulnerable than they've ever felt before. And that's really terror.
Look at that card, Jim.
The goal of the attack, as stated by Youssef, was to strong-arm the United States into dissolving its relationship with Israel, as well as staying out of the Middle East's business. Although it's been largely overshadowed by 9/11, the 1993 bombing was a senseless tragedy that saw over 1,000 injured.
If there's somebody trapped out there, what must they be going through right now?
Panic, a feeling of total isolation, the forgottenness. The world has just forgotten them and they're all on their own.
All afternoon, they've climbed the stairs going floor to floor.
Waco.
Dude, that must have been awful to go through. Like, these people that commit these awful acts, it's like, don't they think about the civilians, like the people that just get caught up in this? They've done nothing wrong, they're just going to work, and now, you know, they're dead.
The Waco siege ends in an inferno. Only a handful of the 95 followers of David Koresh's cult are believed to have survived. But how much blame attaches to the FBI, who assaulted the compound before the fire began?
Founded in 1955 by Benjamin Roden, the General Association of Branch Davidian Seventh-day Adventists are widely regarded as a doomsday cult. Roden died in 1978, and his wife Lois assumed his place as Davidian prophet. That was until 1981, when Vernon Howell, who changed his name to David Koresh, arrived, amassing growing influence in the organization until 1987, when he spun off his own sect of Davidians.
How do these people convince, like, people to join their cults? Like, how do they get people to believe in this, like, mumbo-jumbo?
The raid failed to flush out the cult members, who then, according to American officials, set light to the buildings.
Jesus.
It seems only 8 of the 95 inside, who included 26 British people and 17 children, survived the inferno.
Koresh's Branch Davidians assimilated the original group by force, and in 1993, the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms attempted to raid the Mount Carmel Center Ranch. The ensuing 51-day standoff and firefight resulted in the deaths of 4 ATF agents, as well as 82 Branch Davidians, including 28 children.
It's my impression that, from what I understand, that it was to the government's advantage that the compound either be demolished.
82 people.
Or destroyed or burned, because the physical evidence that might have some opportunity of disputing their contentions is now destroyed.
Rwandan.
Can't believe it went on for 51 days. That is like 2 months that this went on for. Couldn't they have just like sent the army in there and just? But I'm guessing the other side, the cult, they were heavily armed. Must be.
Genocide.
May 7. The massacres that have claimed up to 200,000 lives in Rwanda did not begin as a spontaneous outpouring of tribal rage, but rather as a systematic campaign of killing directed by political leaders and backed by the military.
Over the course of just 3 months, from April to July of 1994, a coalition of extremist Hutu militia groups in the East African nation of Rwanda killed as many as an estimated 800,000 Tutsis.
What?
This was in addition to 10,000 members of the TWA peoples and up to 500,000 Tutsi women who were by Hutu militants.
June 10th, the commander of the small United Nations detachment in Rwanda conceded today that his efforts to broker a ceasefire in the civil war there have shown no signs of success. He predicted more fighting and more massacres.
800,000? I've never heard of this. I cannot believe. That is mad. Almost 1 million people.
This was the Canadian General Romeo Dallaire who was deeply affected by his inability to stop this crisis going on.
The most infamous moment of the larger Rwandan Civil War, which began in 1990 before ending in July 1994. The deadly chaos was spurred on by the assassination of Rwandan President Juvenal Habyarimana. The genocide
Who assassinated him?
didn't end, per se. While the mass killings ceased, the conflict instead morphed into the First Congo War in 1996.
There was I think just a collective willingness back in the United States and in all the world capitals to put your heads in the sand. I mean, this was only 6 months after we had lost a huge number of Army Rangers during the Black Hawk Down incident in Somalia, and I think there was no appetite in Washington at that time
to get involved,
to engage ourselves in another African tribal war.
Oklahoma City bombing.
Dude, that one is insane. Those numbers, 800,000 people, that's like a state. Like, how many people live in Montana? Probably not far off from that, right? Imagine everybody in Montana got, you know, wow. That is insane.
On April 19th, 1995, disgruntled Gulf War veteran Timothy McVeigh carried out the deadliest domestic terror attack ever committed on American soil, killing 169 people and injuring 684 more. Intended as revenge against the United States government for the raids at Ruby Ridge and Waco, McVeigh and co-conspirator Terry Nichols detonated a Ryder rental van on the north side of the Alfred P. Murrah Federal Building.
Yeah, I've heard of this one. Yeah. Again, another psycho.
The seismic blast has been compared to over 5,000 pounds of TNT and caused irreparable damage to over 300 nearby structures and buildings. Tried and convicted in 1997, McVeigh was executed in June of 2001, and Nichols was sentenced to life in prison just 3 years later.
The deaths of the 168 people who died in the April 1995 Oklahoma City bombing were violent, unexpected, and mourned by millions. Today, the man who killed those people died on schedule by lethal injection, and no member of his family was in attendance.
TWA Flight 800.
Wow, no member of his family went. They were all just so ashamed, disgusted, didn't want to be associated with him. And rightfully so. Rightfully so.
Explosion.
Federal safety officials and the FBI and New York City law officials have been all over the scene in the Atlantic Ocean, some 10 miles south of East Moriches on Long Island. There have been reports from a New York congressman that one of the plane's flight recorders had been found, but investigators so far are denying that report.
Only 12 minutes after takeoff from John F. Kennedy International Airport in New York City, Flight 800 exploded and killed all 230 people on board. Parallel criminal investigations undertaken by the FBI and JTTF took nearly a year and a half to determine that there had been no criminal element, and the resulting NTSB investigation took just over 4 years.
Raj, while many suggest not to jump to conclusions this early in the investigation, suspicion, even initial reaction, has questioned the possibility of a bomb, possibly terrorism.
Why did it take 4 years for them to determine that?
The immediate reaction is a bomb. I think that's the normal reaction.
And with Bill Callahan's expertise in international security and investigation, with a background in narco-terrorism, he now wonders.
The costliest and most intensive assessment in aviation history up to that point, the NTSB determined that, in all likelihood, the tragedy was caused by, quote, a short circuit outside the center wing fuel tank that allowed excessive voltage to enter it through electrical wiring associated with the fuel quantity indication system.
So a pure accident, basically.
End quote.
The NTSB hearings essentially concluded that the center wing tank exploded, but they did not define the cause of the initiation, but the initiating event which caused the center wing tank to explode.
Centennial Olympic Park bombing. While fulfilling his job duties during the 1996 Summer Olympics, 33-year-old security guard Richard Jewell discovered a suspicious package under a bench at Centennial Olympic Park in Atlanta, Georgia. While Jewell and his fellow security guards initiated an evacuation, the package, actually an explosive, was detonated, killing 2 people and injuring over 100 more.
Yesterday, lawmen made a second trip to Richard Jewell's former home in Habersham County. Agents bagged potential evidence. They also removed paint samples and took photographs.
Oh, right, what they think it's him.
Other investigators went to a Toco Hills hardware store asking about pipe that might have been used to make the bomb.
Jewell was soon named as a major suspect, and as such, was hounded by the media and authorities, resulting in his trial in the court of public opinion. Eventually, further Atlanta bombings gave way to the FBI's identification of Eric Rudolph.
So it wasn't him. It wasn't Richard Jewell. Oh, man. And they've ruined his life by putting his face all out there.
Was the true perpetrator. In 2005, Rudolph was sentenced to life in prison without parole.
Survivors of his clinic bombing finally got the opportunity to lash out at Rudolph.
Been waiting 7.5 years for it, and the
main purpose was to see him and let him know he failed.
Staring him dead in the eye, Emily Lyons blasted Eric Rudolph, calling him a failure and a coward.
Murder of Gianni.
Poor Richard. I mean, no mention of like how it affected him being hounded in the media. I'm sure like a lot of his personal relationships suffered because of it. Like, how did they make it right with him? Because they had to do something.
Versace.
The stars and millions around the world are in shock over the execution-style murder of designer Gianni Versace, shot to death at point-blank range on the steps of his Miami Beach villa.
Founder of the legendary luxury fashion brand that bore his name, Gianni Versace was a highly prominent fixture of 20th century high culture. The Italian designer and businessman was not only highly prolific, but deeply versatile. For example, he designed the costumes worn by musicians Michael Jackson and Paul McCartney in the 1983 Say 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 music video. Versace's life came to a disturbing end in 1997 upon being murdered by spree killer Andrew Cunanan. Cunanan, who by this point had already murdered 4 other men, took his own life just 8 days later. Cunanan's exact motives for carrying out the murders remain chillingly unclear.
So did Cunanan
What a coward. He didn't want to face the consequences.
feel victimized by those around him or abandoned when his relationship ended to a wealthy gay man?
In a spree killer, it starts with an incident later in life. And that incident is what leads to that type of reckless and power-hungry or destructive behavior.
Before we continue, be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell.
Wow, so basically he was killed for no reason, Gianni.
To get notified about our latest videos. You have the option to be notified for occasional videos or all of them. If you're on your phone, make sure you go into settings and switch on your notifications.
What's going to be number 1?
Columbine High School Massacre. We still don't have the exact answers as to why Eric Harris and Dylan Klebold opened fire on their high school in Columbine, Colorado on April 20th, 1999. What we do know, though, was that until 2012, their rampage was the deadliest of its kind at an American K-12 school, employing a combination of powerful firearms and improvised explosives. 16 people were killed, including Klebold and Harris, who made the choice to end their own lives at the scene after the massacre had ended. Efforts to determine the why of it all, beyond inflicting mass pain and suffering, have been poured over for decades, with no one any closer to understanding the duo's actions than the day they took place. Which 90s moment in...
Man, oh man. God. Yeah, the 90s really had a lot of horrific events. A lot. Maybe it's because, you know, I was a young kid during those times. I wouldn't know about these things. Like, I wasn't watching the news and stuff, but geez, man. Like, the Rwanda one, you know, Columbine, the building that Timothy McVeigh bombed, just absolutely horrible. You know, the Waco one as well. Thanks for watching, guys. If you enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.